It's Billy. Right now. Yo, what if I got attacked by the clones? What if the builder think they found a better stone? What if the beat don't match with the metronome? What if that means you walk your path alone? Call me a vagabond. If all these streets leading to Rome, then wherever I lay is my home. It's Brooklyn, boy strong. I manifest, I'm in the zone. Y'all silly better back up off my throne. Listen, boy nice, better give him his propers. How we come out sane from all the mosh pits. How we found the key to the game without a locksmith. How we seem to manage these lames is so obnoxious. He let it flow from the brain, trusting the process. A vet journeyman on multiple rosters. If I want it, I go out and get it and cop it. A monster with limitless options. Man, like goddamn, y'all gon' soon figure out who I am. We stay cooking, y'all used to that spam. Western beef, I might square up with the square dance. Look, I change plans, not even a southpaw, I'm an outlaw with a rare stance. Your crew never had a fair chance.
Why's that?
I kill a whole bear with my bare hands. Oh, they studied the dark? Well, I was raised in it. Brain shifted, the kid displayed insane physics. Best story never told, and it ain't finished. How we handled a rock, spun and kept the same pivot. I frame different, hot like a flame kitchen. A whole 2 levels out of your range gifted. Catch me on the highway, lane switching. Or right at the top of your bay wish list. It's Billy. Right now. It's Billy. Yeah. What up, what up, what up, what up? It's Billy. Thanks for coming to How Billy Sees It. Today is June 13th, 2023, and this is going to be a very special episode, y'all. Oh, hold up. What am I doing here? Okay. So I actually went through my page, yo, and I decided to number my episodes and all the live episodes from one, the very first one being the one about cable news. The very first one being the one about manufacturing reality. That's right. And all the way to this one where we are at 55, episode 55. Yo, that's crazy. I'm excited about that. I didn't know how long it'd been, but it'd been, 55 episodes. That's great. And I'm really proud of a lot of the stuff I've been able to talk about. I'm proud of the people I've been able to get on and communicate with on here. I don't really talk about this too much, but, honestly, the last 2 years, getting some of these things out, these ideas out, has been huge. Like, I think on my mental health, frankly, been able to just talk about things that are on my mind, as I perceive the world. And I'm around so many people who perceive the world and understand that, things are challenging. There are major problems. People seem to get the sense that everything's getting worse. I've had my own set of perspectives from different things that have gone on in my life as a child into adulthood, my careers continue. And I feel like I've been so lucky to have picked up a lot of interesting experiences, and then the wisdom from that and the capacity to sort of discern things and draw broader conclusions about things. What's this? I got some music playing. Let me turn that way down. Sheba, tell me if that music is a problem. I'm gonna keep it way down here. But what am I saying here? Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been at times a literal weight being removed off my shoulders, or better yet, like my head. Like I would tell Sheba, like I would have these things I wanted to say, and then I had these deep anxieties at the same time, and I'd have to like figure out what to do, and it would be pretty painful actually very early on, and in fact several years ago. And I'm so lucky that with Sheba has been this like catalyst who kind of constantly is like, yo, you got it, you can do it, say it, do it, you're free to do it. I just think that's powerful, and I know that not everybody has something like that, and I just I think that's been nuts, man, and it's been very helpful for me, and it's encouraged me to use this stuff, develop little platforms for myself that are going to be beneficial in all kinds of ways, including just psychologically speaking, saying what I know, what I feel, without having to edit and avoid this and that. And I think that's been the case I think it's probably the case for most of our adult lives. We have this notion of compartmentalizing and avoiding this, and because of our jobs and such. And I understand that it's a challenge. It's a real challenge, and it's something that maybe we'll address a little bit in this episode, right? Because I want to talk about what I think is. Okay, I want to talk about a theory of everything. What I think is going on. I posted a couple of weeks ago on Facebook that I was challenging people to say the most accurate sentence they could think of. Say the most accurate sentence that they can think of. The reason I said that is because I was, we have the ability to create sentences. We have the ability to form sentences which explain phenomena that we observe. We have the ability to draw linkages and make points that we want to make. But sometimes, in fact, all the time, it's important to kind of notice that we're often pointing towards just a sliver of something. We're pointing to a part of something. It's very often not a complete, full, capital T, R, capital R, capital U, capital TH truth. So I have friends. I'm on this thread of friends from high school, and occasionally someone might make a statement about something women do. Women are emotional. And I just think that there's something about that immediately, that sentence, even if it's true, women are emotional. Women can be emotional. Some women are emotional. There's a range of emotion that's present in women. There's also a range of emotion present in men. And so the statement points towards women and excludes this other category. And the reason it does so is it was constructed by a human, and that human has a set of ideas and biases that inform that sentence. That human has a set of values and a goal as they said the sentence, as they formed the sentence and sent it in a chat to other men. Their interests were such that it made sense to leave the sentence, something incomplete. And incomplete how? Incomplete in such a way that everybody in the room gets left unscathed. Everyone in the chat room gets their egos and their sense of their, masculinity and who they are, is unchallenged. We have some other out group, some other individual we can point to and say they're emotional. And of course, emotional in that sense is kind of like, it's not a pejorative, you know what I'm saying? It's used that way. But what does it mean to create like a true sentence? To say a true sentence, well, you could say that humans are emotional, because they are. I'm just giving that one example, but there's so many examples of this. I'm gonna try to jump into this thing here, and we'll see where it takes us. Okay, I have a couple of notes down, and the first thing I have down is, it's all one thing. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. And I think it's crazy to know that. It's all one thing, but we perceive it differently. Each of us perceives it differently. Like when a beam of light goes through, and refracts through a glass prism, and then you have all this separated light, which is separated into all the colors. That's a metaphor for kind of how we perceive the world. The world is one thing. For those people who don't believe me when I say the world is one thing, I will explain how it is. I'll borrow from my good friend Alan Watts. He talks about the stunning quietly ever-present interconnectedness of things. It talks about bees and flowers. And if you are just a casual observer with very little understanding, you might look at a bee and you might look at a flower and you might assume that those two things are completely different. They look different. They seem to be corporeally separate. One is stuck in the ground, the other is flying around and has its own identity and its own set of priorities and things that it's doing, but the two are intertwined, they're interlocked. There are many variations of flora that and floral flowers and such that wouldn't exist without bees. And bees need these flowers for their existence, for the things that they do. They have to exist. They would, one without the other would soon perish if they don't, unless of course there's some adjustment and they evolve and create some other new construction. But in the present truth of the matter is that there's an interconnected nature between, in my yard, the the grass, the weeds, the flowers, the trees, the birds, the bees, the little bunnies that are running around as well. And that's just a truth. That's just a reality, and put us into it. Sometimes as humans, we like to act like we're not a part of this thing, but we are a part of this thing. And so we know that the trees are, producing, through some process, they are producing something we call oxygen that is necessary for us to breathe. And that we breathe and let out carbon dioxide, which is valuable for them and important for them. And that's something we learn very early in our little science classes. My baby says humans are emotional. Men and women are allowed different emotional expressions by society. That's right. Everyone is emotional, but then we have a lens. We have a lens through which we perceive the emotion. And this lens is a fuzzy, sort of simplistic way of categorizing things once it's occurred, as we attempt to observe reality. And it's interesting how there's like a Schrodinger's cat element to this. There's a quantum physics element about the importance of the perceiver on their ability to perceive and to articulate and to, internalize a story about what's going on. So everything is connected. Everything is one thing. I described the external world. Let's talk about the internal world on humans for a bit, shall we? If you were inside a medical facility and you had a limited understanding of the human body and there was a corpse open, you might and you would talk about these things separately. You say, oh, this is musculature, this is a skeletal thing. Okay, over here is the brain. These are organs. You would point them out separately. This is the lung, the liver, the appendix. These are the intestines, small and large. You might be able to point out, veins and capillaries. And these all have different words and they can be talked about separately. But they're all connected. A deep and appropriate conversation about the human body, its physiology, will have to contend with its connectedness. And yet it's important to break it down. Like it's hard. It's too much going on. The human body is incredibly complex. There's so many things going on. And so you break it down and you point to stuff and you give it names and you separate and you try to come up with the relationships and you say, okay, this seems to be doing that in relation to that. Okay. And that gives you the ability to create textbooks and to teach children, and you get these benefits from it. And then people can do research and people can help improve the human condition and the alleviate suffering, even help people through this approach of breaking things down, seeing how they work, recombining them conceptually for us. But it's always important to know that there's always something more than that. There's always something more than what we're describing. Our bodies are not just the parts that we've mentioned. Obviously, there's this thing called consciousness that we don't have the beginnings to grasp and understand its nature and why it exists and why we're born here and why people die at different times and for different reasons. And you want to come up with all these schemes to understand it, but people die for all these different reasons. Good people, bad people, children who don't deserve it, all kinds of stuff. And there's something deeply complex that will require you to focus on somewhere to have a beginnings of a conversation. And you will focus and you will bring your values and the words, the language you have in order to understand it. I think that like the New York sky thing, actually, people in New York were suffering from like a red sky and really, I'm smiling. I don't even know why, but I actually saw a couple of friends talking about like not being able to breathe, like challenges breathing and such. We had a little bit out here in Baltimore. It wasn't anything like what I saw in the pictures on Facebook, but we definitely had like some redder skies and a thicker kind of air for a couple of days. We're interconnected. Polluted waters, climate change, we're interconnected. Our cultures, interconnected. We want to separate and name things. We call this black culture, and we have something with white culture. We have something, there's an Indian culture, and those exist, and they have their roots somewhere, and they have a story. It's a very complex story. And of course, we know that these things go deeper. So black culture is not one monolithic thing. There are different versions of black culture present all over just the United States. And then there's an African culture, we might say, which is different. There's a Caribbean culture, which is different. There are brown and black people on every continent, and who their cultural manifestation will be different. It will be representative of that condition, that place, of the nature of the relationships, the organizations, the words, the language, the morals, values, the legal systems. Everybody will. It's all very complex, but we use these words. We apply words to things, and I guess I want to say that it's important to notice that it's that things exist, and then we apply words to them after. We apply words to them after. And in this culture, we have a really problematic way of talking about ourselves, which has been propagated in our schools from childhood and into adulthood. We just have so many industries and a media, a rapacious media, advertising industry, religious systems, and they're all invested in this notion of our separateness. I know that as it relates to advertising, there's benefit to speaking about ourselves as separate. You can sell shampoo for women and shampoo for men, and a watch for men and a watch for women, and you set these norms, and you create these separations. If we're talking about religion, we're talking about Christian mythology. One of my biggest issues with Christian mythology is deep at the core of it is this inherent separation, because at least the way that I've been taught, and my understanding, the interpretation of the Bible, people can present Bible verses to defend this claim that humans are inherently sinful, that we are the products of the original sin of Adam and Eve, and that from that there was a separation between us and the divine. A separation, that it's not one thing, that you look around, you see all the problems and the deprivation and the harm and the suffering and the violence and the oppression, and you quickly it Makes sense. Oh, okay, yeah, this is a fucked up place. Okay, and so you externalize the good, and we're always just behind some kind of like utopian, decent, good, divine space, that we're always in need of some, repentance or some redemption, and that's an inherent story, and that's an inherent separation. And I think I think it's important to note, Jad, I think that separation plays deeply in the subconscious. I've said before, it's like a rock in the shoe. And what I mean by that is, if you're running and you're running and you're running, and then you get a rock in your shoe, a little stone in your shoe, it inhibits your best time. You're gonna have to figure that out. It's gonna hurt. You might deal with it for half a mile, and it's just always there. It's stopping you from anything. Like, you can keep going, you can fit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this nuisance that prevents you from reaching the flourishing, the best, the fullest understanding. But it's deeply powerful, right? Because, like I'm saying, we perceive this one thing so separately. We internalize stories. Our understanding of reality as we experience the present is entirely dependent on the language, the words, the assumptions, the values, the pre-existing understanding, the limited language, the limited approach that we've been taught, or the few things that we have experienced firsthand. That's always the best, but certainly we all as children get handed down a set of ideas, and that we have no choice but to experience reality from that. And we experience reality, and we internalize a story about reality through language and through our words and through the story that we are able to pull away. And so it's inherently limiting. There's so much going on at all times, and we have to zero in on something. When someone asks you how your day went, you'll have to point to something, and it won't be a full story about how your day went. We know that. We allow for that. We just kind of like, we won't, we don't really want to hear a full story about how your day went. Right? We want to hear some kind of quick summary, something that then allows me to say how my day went. We talk about ourselves and we attempt to exchange a deep experience that is beyond words. Words fail us. Words are a technology. Thankfully we have words. I'm so grateful for them, but they aren't what is, The truth is way more complex. So we perceive everything separately and differently. And that's why you see, people have all their different preferences and all their different anxieties. And there are people with their Trump hats, and there are people with BLM shirts, and there are people who love Joe Biden. There are people who love Brussels sprouts, and others who hate football. And I don't want to be flippant about all of this, because I'm not saying that these are all of equal value, or that, they're all the same thing. When in terms of, we'd have to talk deeper about sort of what these things all mean. But we experience a phenomena. You take 10 people in the room, they experience a phenomena, a movie, an event, and they all 10 are receiving, internalizing a different story. And that's an incredible challenge. And consider that our like legal system, our judicial system, tries to do its best to ascertain the truth, and one of its best modes for this is something like eyewitness accounts. Is one of the best things we have, and yet it's deeply flawed, and we know that. We know it is, but it's the best we have. And of course they're always trying to do more and more with forensics and all these things, and these things help. but we experience things. We experience the road differently. If I'm in the United States driver and I'm driving in Great Britain, or if I'm driving in Antigua where my dad lives, we experience the road differently. My dad lives they drive on the left side of the road over there. And when I'm over there, I feel a little awkward. I have to be very conscious and aware that I'm supposed to be on the left side of the road. When I'm over here, I drive. I don't even think about it. Like, driving for me is second nature. I can have full conversations. I can be in my head daydreaming, and my body just seems to know how to drive. When I'm in a condition and a space that is familiar to me, when the terms are familiar to me, when I move to a different space, when things are flipped, like I said, driving in Antigua, I'm perceiving things differently. While my father drives out there, and to him, it's that second nature. So I want to hammer home just how experience is different, and it's not. And I'm pointing to just a few things, but this is all underwhelming by comparison to what actually is going on. Like, we are driving. When we're driving, you have 6 people driving on a road trip somewhere, and one of them is hungry. They're having a totally different experience. Like, really hungry. They're driving and they're seeing food things all the time. They're very keened in on where can we stop to get food. Someone has to pee. They're keened in on when's the next restroom. The other 4 people are maybe just enjoying the music or enjoying the view, enjoying the drive. They might be having a conversation and experiencing things very differently. They don't have the urgency that the other 2 might have. And it's not small. And beyond that, like, road signs and numbers and colors and different things, we're all experiencing triggers. Some of us are more sensitive to light. I've talked about allergies before. If somebody's in the car with dealing and the windows open, somebody might be dealing with some serious allergies. My little brother used to struggle with motion sickness. We would sometimes have to kind of plan to stop the car sometimes just to let him kind of recoup and come back in. It's a totally different experience than everyone else was. And from love, we were able to, because he was able to articulate that, we picked that up, and we, from love, created a situation that allowed for that and tried to alleviate that condition for him and to take it into account. I want to get on the language thing for a second, because again, the perception thing is so key, and we perceive and then internalize a story with language. And the only way we can internalize it is through the language we have, the theories that we already possess, the explanatory foundations that we already have, our fears. One of my favorite writers, Christopher Hitchens, tells this story about this time he's walking through a park with a good friend of his, and they walk past this like small sort of waterfall deal, and it's got 3 streams falling down, 3 streams of water coming down. And his friend falls right to his knees and begins to pray and have a real moment, and and he sees the triune God. He sees Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and that water, that waterfall, that expression of nature gave him that. It attached to his experience. It attached to his prior notions about, and values around the number 3 and whatever other emotional thing that is beyond language that can't be explained. He fell to his knees and started praying. And Christopher Hitchens, as he tells his story, he does it in a mocking way, right? Because Christopher Hitchens is a big renowned atheist, and we can do that, but Christopher Hitchens also has his idiosyncrasies and superstitions and things in the ways that he perceives. Superstition even has a connotation, like I'm trying to be dismissive, but I'm not. I'm saying that when you perceive a very complex world, we fill in blanks with our experience. We experience, and then we fill in whatever is missing, whatever we don't know. We bring our own emotional attachments and language and expressions. I think that the word U.F.O is an interesting word, or the acronym. U.F.O stands for Unidentified Flying Object. I think it's a keen and accurate use of language there. If you're not familiar with the word UFO, and I think I first learned about aliens. I grew up saying aliens. UFO has a degree of humility in it, baked in. Unidentified. So what do you know about this thing? Well, I know it's an object. Let's call it that. If it's in the air, I know it's flying. And then what else do you know? Nothing else. Unidentified. It says it in the word. But if I'm saying alien, then there's a bit of a conceit in that. It's a bit presumptuous. You don't know what you're looking at. We have these pictures and you're like, it's aliens. Well, it's a UFO actually. But like, what if you don't have the word UFO available to you? What if you, whatever language you speak they don't have something like UFO? What if you're a smaller child and you don't have the word or acronym UFO available to you? You'll call it an alien, like I did. And you will experience it as an alien. You will experience this with the fear and anxiety that you've internalized around your notion of alien. You will have a sense of the big head and the eyes or whatever and the probing, whatever you heard from movies, and this will be all part of your experience, even though the UFO exists as it does. UFO is something we don't know. It might be an alien, but we have to be better at language that is accurate. We need that. That's part of our political problem right now. It's part of our problem in the media right now. We have a very flippant relationship with just using words in order to quickly point to things without being meaningfully interested in saying accurate stuff. I talked about that at the top. And so what we're doing is we're throwing projections out at each other. We're all throwing our projections out. Staying in the sky for a second. When people talk about the Big Dipper, if I look up and I look at the Big Dipper, guess what? The Big Dipper isn't the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper is my projection. It's something I was taught. It's something that was in science textbooks. From our perspective, from this planet, looking up at the sky, we can point to a certain point in the universe, a certain collection of stars that from our perspective seems to look like a little dipper, like a little ladle thing. But each of those stars is uniquely, brilliantly different. They don't know that you think that they're the Little Dipper together. They don't think of themselves as a collective. They aren't a collective. The reason is that our perspective, and they just seem to, they shine brightly. And so we've identified that, we've grouped them and identified that. So this thing, important, this thing exists. It exists beyond words. It exists before words. And then it is us projecting for our purposes, for our benefit, projecting our words on top of it. My baby says 369. She says just because it's unidentified doesn't mean it's an alien. Exactly. That space of uncertainty is actually major key. It's a major, important, valuable part of understanding what is true. And it's a major part of talking about what is true, which is why I have to talk about it today in this episode, which is a theory of everything. So I've talked about this in other episodes, actually. Projections. There was a girl I'm gonna try to make these quick. There was a girl I dated, I met on Tinder, and she was very pretty, and she was very feminine. All of her pictures were very feminine. She was also a point guard, played basketball. And when we hung out and met for the first time, I thought she was pretty. She looked just like her pictures. But as we started to chill and get to know each other and laugh and drink, whatever, she let out this big laugh. I said something and she was, oh, and she became, and I noticed what I perceived as masculine. And it changed my perception of her, and it changed my my experience of her. I started to saddle her with this thing. I started to notice her, and instead of just simply being with her and experiencing her, and maybe you notice what you notice, but you just incorporate further who she is. As the pictures were not what she is. Neither is the laugh, neither is the dress, any of this stuff. But every moment is a new opportunity to increase my understanding of who she was. But instead, I projected I wanted her to be more feminine, which is a weird, set of definitions that I had constructed and that I projected onto her. And then instead of being able to sit down and simply appreciate and experience her for several hours, I started being just a bit unpleased. It was something, you know what I'm saying? Like I started to, I saddled her with the thing, and I was attached to something else, and so I'm attached to this other thing. She's instead of being present, I applied words to her like masculine and my own sensibility. When she just is. I tell another story about driving to CNN and being late. I was about 15 minutes late on a Friday when I do this cartoon thing with Jake Tapper, and I got all nervous because I'm usually very on time. I like to be on time. And it's this whole thing when you come in and we draw in this big pit full of people, full of other producers and whatnot. And I just so I'm upset. I'm driving and I'm trying to drive fast. I'm swerving, trying to get through things, and I'm also texting, so very dangerously texting the producer like, "Hey, I'm 15 minutes late." Blah blah. She's not replying, so I'm really upset. And I realized that I had created a whole story in my head that was making me pissed. I was screaming at drivers, "Come on, get the fuck out of here!" And people are moving too slow. This other person's moving too fast, and they're all trying to mess me up. They're all trying to keep me from getting to work on time. That's the story that I told myself. And when I got to work, I realized that, so I'm 15, 20 minutes late. Jake was 40 minutes late. We can't start without, we both need to be there. So it was completely fine. I projected a negative experience on that ride. How often do we do this? Instead of simply driving, getting to my destination safely, being a sane, reasonable person, I projected this whole thing, which made me the dangerous person on the road. And it wasn't real. I wasn't late. Jake wasn't there. The image I had that I was fearful of having to walk in and see Jake waiting, he tapping his finger, and the producers, standing there. No, it wasn't real. So do we notice these kinds of things? Are we able to notice it? And just to finish that story, when I think about other people who see me flying around the road, are they just pissed at me the way I was, or will they be able to act like, one of the key things like this, obviously there's something going on, like, will they go, something's wrong, he clearly is late for something, or he thinks he's late for something, or do they construct stuff because they don't have the information, they just see a bad driver? Do you see how complex this is? Our projections are at root of so many of the times that we don't see each other, and we don't speak well to each other, and we're not even collaborating quite often if we're not honing and improving the way we communicate, being aware of our limitations, of our perceptions, working on our projections, being aware of our projections. But we all have projections. There's nothing to be upset or fearful or to deny about. It's what it is. Football is huge for me. Sheba doesn't care much for football. Dance, Apple computers, Google, Jesus, Trump, beef patties, clubs, the news, AI, right? Anything, take anything, and each of these will have different meanings for us. And I want to say that the world, like the way our brains work, we do a deep calculation that is the foundation of our experience that it's not front lobe. We're not super conscious of this equation. On the AI question, like, it's going to affect different people differently. You know, there are lots of people who see this AI thing as a massive opportunity. I see an explosion of videos of people teaching you you can make 7 websites, and you can make videos, and you can write, 20 articles a day, and then you can publish that, and blah, blah. So these people are oriented towards seeing this new technology as an opportunity to be hyper productive in a certain way, and they're selling that notion. There are problems with this, but there are other people for whom, like, AI is a real threat, you know what I'm saying, to their jobs and livelihoods. It's not a massive opportunity to make random websites that have no purpose. They're just there, or whatever. So Easy, wow, what up? Easy says pressure creates a diamond. Oh, Easy said 369. Interesting. Sheba, women probs feel pressure to perform a feminine laugh rather than just getting to laugh authentically in order to attract men. I think so. I think, you know what I'm saying, we tell women what the ideal is in all these different ways. We tell men what the ideal is in these ways. And so we're all carrying these psychological burdens of, like, how we should be and how we don't measure up. And we're projecting, and depending on how we view it, depending on what we've been taught in our cultures, what kinds of things have been heralded and told to be ideal, then we internalize this thing, and then we're projecting, and we're trying to present something closer to that because we want love, and we want to be seen, and we want to be accepted. And I want to say that the key to what I'm trying to point out here is that there's a key element of accepting what is, rather than projecting, rather than assuming, rather than clinging and attaching to archetypes or some other past phenomena, some trauma, attaching ourselves to that, to be present and to experience what is, to experience that girl and her laugh and her smile and her energy and everything. Like this, there's not enough words to describe what goes on when two people sit in a room together. So I could call it like energy or her vibe, but that doesn't tell you quite what it is, but as I said, I wasn't fully present because I was judging her against the archetype of a more feminine girl, so so this is what's happening. Quick story, since we're in 2023 and there's so many issues with LGBTQ community and trans stuff and trans issues and identity. I told a story in a separate video where a friend of mine, who at the time was a female friend of mine, she invited me to play flag football with her for this co-ed league. And I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, hell yeah, I actually had just come off surgery because I had a knee injury the prior year. But I had, a year of rest, and I was down to play. I'm ready to play in this league, and she's giving me this. She said, here, I'll send you the link. So she sends me the link. I agree, and then later on she sends me the link, and I see that the league she invited me to was the DC Gay Flag Football League. And the truth is that when I saw that link, my inner homophobia came all the way out. I thought I was beyond this. I didn't know that I had this in me, but I hadn't been challenged like this. I hadn't had to face something. So it was an interesting moment, And I'll tell you, for the first minute and a half, I'd come up with all these reasons to not play. Like I started to, I was fearful of what, But that's what actually got me through it. So I started off projecting like this sense that, first off, I'm straight. I don't want to play in a gay league or whatever. And obviously it's not an exclusive gay league. And when I got in, I realized it's like 80-20 or something. And I projected all this stuff. I had a vision of gay men, very flamboyant gay men playing football and flirting with me and making me feel uncomfortable. I came up with all this stuff in my head, you know? But thankfully, it only took me about a minute, 2 minutes before I caught myself and I became aware of what I was doing. And I realized that I need to stop that. And I need to say yes to this opportunity to play in this league. I joined the league. It was an awesome league. Of all the flag football leagues I played out in DC, this DC Gay Flag Football League was super organized. The refs were on point with stripes and whistles, and the lines on the field were all set up. These motherfuckers had Gatorade and water set up. They had partnerships with local businesses after the game. Dudes would all go and go to a bar and drink and talk and get to know it. None of the other leagues had this kind of like connectivity. They had a website, they had a video, and they would post like little articles. They had a draft, and I'm just trying to point out how incredible like the experience actually was. And it was competitive. Most of the people there were like collegiate players. I played with guys who played at like Colorado and at Nebraska and Michigan, and they were here and they're gay and they're at the DC Gay Flag Football League, and some of them were straight. And it's so funny because there was some culture shock shit, you know what I'm saying? Like I remember we were at practice, and one of the dudes comes in. He came into practice late, and the other guy was like, I know why you're late, and he starts wiping his mouth and sort of implying that he's late because he was giving head or something. And I remember thinking, Jesus, this is football. What the fuck? And then as the games went on and as practice went on, this humor, this kind of like raunchy gay humor was a staple. This was part of it, and to me, this football doesn't include this. And so I remember having a weird feeling like about that. And I went to my friend and I asked her, I said, yo, why so much like sex humor, you know what I'm saying, during football? And she was like, yo, this is our sexuality and the acts of love and sex and lovemaking that we do. This is the point of oppression for us. This is the thing that people apply and tell us is to be shameful and at different points in history and illegal. And so we reclaim it, and it is the place where we meet and we are all aware of our shared condition through that oppressive lens. And it was an interesting way to think about it, and I hadn't thought about it that way. And that's why black people talk about being black so much. And that's why women talk about being women so much. And you see it in their humor and their art. We have this experience, and people are experiencing it all differently. And we're projecting differently. And the key is love. If I hadn't said yes to that experience, if I hadn't said yes to go play flag football, I would have been stuck with whatever limited sense I had. It was very limited. I had a couple of gay friends, but not many, and we don't really talk about stuff like that. So I had this incredible opportunity. The quarterback on our team was this tall, lanky black dude, and I had no clue he was gay. Actually, like I said, some significant segment of the population was straight, and I had no, like, his mannerisms. He threw the hell out of the football. He was a serious athlete, and I didn't know if I should ask him if he was like, what type of question is that? So I didn't ask him if he was gay. I just was fucking playing football with the dude and with everybody else. And some of them were very effeminate and gay, and others were not. And some of them were drag queens. And it was a really interesting thing. When we went out to dinner after one of the games, our quarterback, his boyfriend shows up. And his boyfriend, so like I said, the quarterback was like this tall, 6'2", looked like Randall Cunningham type of dude. And his boyfriend was this 6'5" fat white man. It was crazy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Answers any questions I had, Let's see here. Sheba said he's multifaceted like a diamond. Easy says the world is full of beautiful contradictions. It is, yo. Niesta says, that's surprising. Watched your content and thought you were pretty accepting. Right, I am. That's what I'm saying. But I also caught myself. And I think it's important to be honest, you know what I'm saying? Because I could have told myself a different story. You know, I could have said no and then told myself an entirely different story. This is back in, by the way, this is 2013. I could tell myself a different story and feel fine with myself, you know? Like, yeah, my knee was hurting a little bit and I didn't really want to play in that league. And then just play in a different league and feel good, you know, and never really deal with how I actually move in the world, you know? So let's see. Shiva says, do groups of straight dudes not joke about having sex with women? Yeah, they do. Definitely. See, it's you know, all of these triggers for me were unique to me. And I need to have the awareness to you know, if I wasn't, and especially her explanation, right? Again, that this is the focal point of the identity and the oppression that the identity group faces, then, you know, and the stereotype of just hypersexual, everything's, you know, this immoral condition, and it's my projection, and you see it all the time. You see it on Fox News. You see these people, they have no real experience with the groups that they want to malign. They have no real genuine firsthand experience. They have only their biases and their projections. And it isn't what's true. It isn't what's real. What's real is that every single one of those players in that league was a full and complete and unique person. And in fact, the woman who invited me to the league, she is now a man. They are a man. And I'm friends with them. And we connect every now and again, at least on chat. I'd like to see them again in person. We actually met through work. They are a camera person and a very talented filmmaker. But I'm glad that I'm the type of person who says yes, who attempts to go and look at the thing rather than to settle for my assumptions about the thing. And that is how we see what is, rather than to see what we've projected. The challenge is to be present, to have awareness of our limitations, awareness of our biases, awareness of the limited nature of words. And if I describe, say, yeah, my trans friend, my gay friend, like, they're more than that. That is one label, it's one facet. And if I can do someone a disservice by limiting that, my white friend, my black friend. Yeah, okay, that's a label. They're deeper than that. And when you focused on the black friend, you're doing that for a reason. You're trying to differentiate them for a reason, and maybe it's useful for a reason. You know what I'm saying? But it's not what they are. And we gotta actually do that work to understand that. And if you know, this manifests in every fucking direction. It manifests in race and in class and in gender and sexuality and all the rest of it. Easy ask, did they throw the F word around? Occasionally, yeah. Shiva says, what an interesting experience and what powerful lessons you got from them. Yeah, for real. For real. Niesta, no matter how much we grow, there'll always be subconscious biases that we have to continually challenge. I get it. Yep. Shiva says, yes, our projections are not necessarily reality. They aren't. They just aren't. You know, they can't be. They're the best we have, and we don't have to throw them all away, but we need to be aware of it. And our best bet, and it's so beautiful that the world is constructed this way. We have this capacity to go further and actually learn and have and understand for real. But you have to choose it. And that's where love comes in, because if you have to actually love what is real. You have to be interested in what is real. And we don't have any training on that. And we've been coerced, and we have modeled for us every day. I left CNN, a place where there's supposedly like elite conversations happening, where some of the best elite communicators are trying to ascertain what is going on in the world. And it's not that. It's often a lot of simplified, quick regurgitated, copied and pasted stuff. And we have to be careful about that because we model our conversations at home off of these things we see. But let me continue. Not only are we projecting all these things on the world, but we project a lot of shit on ourselves. Our fears and anxieties, they quietly drive our behavior. You know what I'm saying? So my projection of myself was, I'm an athlete and I'm straight. That's my identity. And so I separate myself from this other group who has a different identity. But the identities, in fact, if we understand what identity is and how it works, these are cultural manifestations. These are words and cultural manifestations. These are norms and ways of being, assumptions about being that are often always the product of a historical truth. And so the Black cultural identity in America is a product of all of the things that Black people have gone through, the lore and the myth and the truth and the learnings and the teachings and the ways of being that were a product of slavery and Jim Crow and civil rights movement and, and prior and, the the chattel slavery trade and everything since then. The brilliance, we have Black people in every facet of our society. But where the fuck was I going with that? But we project onto ourselves. We project our sense of what we can do. When I first left CNN, I was very cautious and fearful about how I speak at first. I've worked really hard to push past that. I've worked hard to say, I'm more than this, but the way it manifested for me is when I first left CNN, when I made cartoons, I tried to avoid certain things. I was nervous about burning bridges. I wanted to be a producer. I would curse a lot less, right? There was some sort of, I'd reached this space of like CNN, whatever, producer and people in this kind of level of like how those people act, and I need to perform that. And I had that seep into my psychology, and it was preventing me from exploring things and being the fullest expression and do exactly what I want to do, say exactly what I want to say. And it's been a real process to like slowly like dip deep further into like saying things that might be upsetting to my colleagues in those institutions. I'd say when I was younger, I avoided baseball and got into football and basketball because I was Black. I told myself that Black kids don't play baseball. What kind of nonsense is that? And of course, that extends to swimming. That extends to golf and things like this. And like these might be interesting observations to make, but they shouldn't be they shouldn't rise to something like a truth. You know what I'm saying? Or else it becomes an anchor. And we project that, and we project it and limit ourselves in terms of what we can do and how we can move, what we can say. So I've been a bit all over the place, but I think there's a coherent line here, and I'm gonna try to just wrap it up and tie it all in here. The last element of this is time. It's all one thing. We're all connected spatially. We're all connected. We're all one organism. The plants and people, our ideas are all one thing. The institutions we've built, the histories we've made together, the language that we share, the air we breathe, the water we breathe, it's all one thing. And that's a mind fuck to really get and understand that. But but also time, it's all one thing. Time is a construct. Time is a construct the same way that, nationality is a construct. That this person was born, across this arbitrary line that we've created, and so they're Mexican. and this person is Canadian, and this person is like these. It's all a construct. So there's only the present. There's only now. To understand that, you have to really notice that, like, when we talk about trauma, we're talking about attachment to past events. We're talking about, and trauma is just a catch-all word, but I think trauma, like spoken broadly, is about all the ways that the nicks and bruises of every day being told how to be, being told that that we fall short of something, and like trying to fit into these little spaces. And of course then there's like violent trauma and things like this too, but that's past stuff. And it's important to be present, because if you associate too deeply, if your inner story is too deeply associated with the past thing, you won't be able to appreciate the present. And that's what happened on that date when I was with that girl. And that's what almost happened with the football. I had a past understanding, stories I'd heard from my uncles and my cousins and people, and a sense of sin and gay and this and that, and I almost didn't get to have a present experience with a dope group of people, So the past is something to not be attached to, and the future isn't something to be attached to either. These both help us. They help us. Like, the future is important as a concept. Time gives us, okay, let's meet at 3 p.m. We can coordinate shit like this. But it's also a psychological trap. You're too caught in the future. You're not present. It's all one thing. It's actually all one thing. And you can use all of these concepts all of these words you can use to better experience, the vast complexity of life, the vast complexity of the different manifestations of just humans, but life broadly. The ability, like I said, if you look at the human body, it's all complex. The ability to point out the liver and the skeletal system and the lungs and the heart, and to point those out, it gives you a better mosaic. Can you imagine if you didn't have the capacity to point these things out? You're just looking at this big fleshy thing, and you can't. So the words are important, but it is all one thing. And in time, it's like these tools are important to meet and to learn from the past and to plan for the future and to all this. But if you can be overwired in these directions, and you can fail to be present. The present is the only thing that is. The more you're attached to either the past or the future, the less mentally well you might be. I feel comfortable saying that, and I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I think that these attachments to concepts are a powerful component of the fractured and different ways that we internalize this reality. And if we can get away with it sometimes, like we might have a word, and I might say a word like God, and you might receive it one way and I might receive it a different way, and we can all sort of live harmoniously with our slightly different definitions of what we're pointing to, and especially as we can try to better understand each other. But the problem starts to come when you start to commit to your interpretation, you start to commit to your perception, and you start to chastise the other perception. You start to believe that there's no other way to see this thing. And of course there's other ways to see this thing. Let's see here. Easy, would it be okay for you to throw the F word around with them? No, I don't think so. That's why I definitely avoided saying it. Sheba says, challenge accepted. Let's see here. Sheba says, yes, our projections are not necessarily reality. Niesta, yes, exposure to differences dispel misconceptions and allows us to see others' humanity. Exactly. I have been on for an hour, so I'm going to actually try to not be on for too much longer, but I am going to share this real quick. So I'm going to be on for probably another 10 minutes, and let me just put this on so you can see this. In the last episode, I did an episode about intersectionality, and I created this thing right here. Okay. And this was me trying to attempt to look at what intersectionality is. And I just want to point to the fact that we have all these, without real firsthand experience, we don't have anything. We have only a story that we've been told. And that story needs deeper experience, or else it's just a story. But you can believe it, Let's see. Society acts as if prevailing narratives, social discourses, stories are reality. Exactly. Yes, they do. I don't care. Those that matter don't mind. Sheba says releasing attachment is key to positive evolution. Are your lights on? No, my light's not on. But it's okay, yo. I'm about to jump off, yo. And just to say again, yo, this is what I think is at the root of so much of the problems in the world, that it's all one thing. We have this one gelatinous thing that escapes language, and yet we each come at it with our own fears and projections and our attempts to understand it. And through our attempts to understand it, we carve things up and we point to specific things. That's what our scientific, our disciplines are, Philosophy is an attempt to understand what is. Biology is an attempt to understand what is, but very narrowly focused on the human body. Anthropology is an attempt to understand what is, but it does so through a process of looking at cultures and the evolution of cultures through society and around our world. Chemistry is an attempt to understand what is, but it does so by looking, things on the chemical level. Physics is an attempt to understand what is, and it does so by looking at forces. And Newtonian physics is the model that they use, that they overlay on what is real, because what is real is deeply complex. But we have a decent enough model, a decent enough map, called physics, that helps us understand something in relation to forces and all that stuff. But it's always being looked at and improved, Sheba says the low lighting makes you look brooding and sexy. Thanks, babe. So I think the biggest thing I want to hammer home is that we have to become comfortable with not knowing. We need to become familiar and comfortable with the limitations of our perception. We have industries, and I just left one, that there's so much money and reputation built on certainty, built on knowing the answer. And as soon as even if the news industry started to become more honest about this, one of them, Fox, will be like, I know the truth. Some guy will be, I know. If everyone started to become more honest about the limitations of their perception, all it would take is one dickhead to be like, no, I know exactly what it is, and I'm certain of it. And this proclamation, it's not true. It's just a marketing scheme, a way of talking about himself. People would go and flock and try to listen to the confident person, not the true person, but the confident person. And this is this is a bad feature of our experience as a society. We need to be suspicious of certainty. We need to be appreciative of doubt. We need to understand the deep complexity of what is true. We need to understand that truth is so deep, it can't be explained or described in words. Some people might call it God as a word. Some people call it the universe. This is this entire complex thing that goes on. And it is the multifaceted, interwoven, interconnected set of truths that we each hold that then creates a collective truth. And that's the best that we have. It's all one thing, guys. All right. And the better we learn to communicate, and to honor and respect each other's perspectives and understand the different ways we perceive and accept those differences, the better off we'll all be, because that's what is. And it's just unfortunate that we have political systems and all kinds of stuff where people are incentivized to play on our differences, to elevate our differences from slight distinctions and into difference, into meaningful difference, which then can be used for legal benefit and for privilege one way or the other, on race, on class, on gender, on sexuality. We're all trying to find love and we're all trying to find acceptance. And the way we do that will be entirely different based on our internal workings and our intuitions. A set of truths that can't be fully articulated in words. That in combination with the cultural norms that we've been born into that were outside of our control. We're born on certain plots of land that have different norms. You're born into a certain family, a certain condition, and people will expect things of you. And so we need to just kind of notice that we're all in search of love this way. And notice that the people who are trying to rile us up to hate certain people, there's certain expressions of this that get a lot of attention, and I get backlash, and people want to diminish certain people for the ways that they express, and the ways that they seek love and seek to feel whole and feel good about themselves. And these are biases. The truth is that we're all doing the same thing. We're all doing the same thing with different degrees of passion and in different ways. All right, that's all I got. That's the episode. That's my theory of everything. Love, communication, presence, knowledge that it's all one thing, knowledge of self. That's it. Love each other. You're harming yourself. You're projecting. All right, take it easy. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And I think moving forward, I really wanted to get this out. Like I said, it's been really kind of cathartic and helpful for me. And I think going forward, we're gonna be doing some cool stuff with some new shows and different formats. So look out for that, Joe. Thanks for joining us. Take it easy.
That life is this incredible story, a journey that's unfolding for us, from us. The life experience isn't just out there, it's also inside of us. It's our perception, our beliefs, our language, our traumas, our prior assumptions. Sometimes you need the benefit of time and some distance. You can look back and see, everything happened just as it needed to. For this moment. Listen, I've been grown, my step pops move just like the wind blows. I chin stroke and reminisce on days when life was simple. Me, always had a pen stroke, fresh like Mentos. At 9 I wrote complex lines and colored pencils. By 16 the game was mental. The stuff I've been through, I had to learn to break shit down and reassemble. The cops judge me by my skin tone, me and my kinfolk, we been broke. These checks too slow, file the rent grow. Look, sidewalk chalk, I trace it in black. Shit strange how the brain can relapse to anger in fact. But hey, everybody chasing a stack, sitting at the table telling fables with a plate full of scraps.
You had the mic, now we taking it back. Mirror to the face, facing it flat. Can you face it or not? They stole your whole shit straight from the apps. Don't at me, I'm just stating the facts. And all these words I spit, I'm a wordsmith. Perfect verses, hurt way worse than curse words did. Get the hearses, how they gon' hang truth from purse strings? The nerve of these clowns and cursed earthlings. Check the grace they got for racists and bots. Content clowns, chasing the guap. They daily research on the wire, be copy and pasted a lot. Wait, my basic cable is basically ops. Breaking news. I try to count my blessings, though these people are vexing. Notice pain is a testing. Choose to pressing, I'm etched in. Stuff of exploded stars caressing. Who got bars like Billy B. Blessing? Answer the question. But let me say less, I don't flaunt predator apex. I make moves, y'all stunt for placements. Life stage is amazing by God's graces. Not a thug, but definitely goon adjacent. I foul flagrant, chef it up with no apron. But y'all ego talk too much and not patient. Look, not for Nathan, stay true and stop faking. That's why the broads turned off and not naked. I'm complex, never complacent. My steps constant, accomplishments and roads taken. So I'ma live this one life my way. Big moves, my head might skyscrape. Migraine, I stack bread like sideways. They pay a lot to talk in sly ways. Now I keep the fam fed off rhyme play. Who the type to set it off in 9 ways? Billy, the most creative MC in this time space. Look, who the the type to set it off in 9 ways. Billy, the most creative MC in this time space. Who the type to set it off in 9 ways? Billy, the most creative MC in this time space.